ties. Today, you'll hear from U.S. and Canadian mayors addressing the recent news from the administration regarding the newly imposed tariffs on Canadian imports. With that, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Mayor Olivia Chow of the City of Toronto.
Thank you. Canada and the United States have enjoyed a long-standing and deep friendship. Together, we created a successful economic partnership that was the envy of the world. And this partnership supported millions of workers and businesses on both sides of the border, both sides of the lake. And Toronto is the largest city in Canada with 123 billion in US trade every year. And unfortunately, President Trump's trade war is putting it all at risk. And people on both sides of the border and the lakes are feeling anxious. They're worried about their jobs and the impact of this trade war will have on their cost of groceries, gas, homes, cars. And it really doesn't have to be that way. These measures hurt Canadians, American businesses and workers. We're calling on President Trump, well, at 4 o'clock, still have a few hours, to end these threats once and for all. And I've met with Americans and the Mexican mayors in Washington just recently, and I'm here today with colleagues from US and Canada at the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Alliances. We have a good team. And what strikes me most as we gather together is that sense of unity. We are speaking in one voice, and we are agreeing that let us not hurt each other. We have a shared commitment to look out for each other, to make sure our communities stay connected, work together despite these challenges. And here's our commitment today, that when we support each other, we will get through difficult times.
Hold on one moment. I'm not sure. Well, looks like Mayor Chow might have technical difficulties. Give her a moment to see if she'll come back on. I appreciate your patience. If she's not gonna, if we can't get Mayor Chow to come back on, I would like to direct it over to Mayor Johnson of Chicago.
Mayor Johnson of Milwaukee first.
Milwaukee, excuse me, my pardons.
That's all right. There's a lot of Mayor Johnsons running around here. Well, I appreciate that. And good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with my colleagues, mayors from across the United States, as well as Canada. And I'm certain that every single mayor here today wants a strong local economy. They want good jobs for their residents. They want success for their businesses. I certainly do here in the city of Milwaukee. Canada and the United States have economic ties that are mutually beneficial. Together, we've got a greater strength. And I want businesses in my city to have fair access to Canadian markets. And I want the economic synergies to continue to benefit all of our economies, no matter what side of the border you're on. So a trade war is quite literally the last thing that we need. People may not realize the scale of international trade in our state. Canada is the top destination for Wisconsin exports. Last year alone, nearly $8 billion worth of exports went from my home state of Wisconsin to Canada. There are projections that in the state of Wisconsin, thousands and thousands of people could face unemployment if hefty tariffs, and not just tariffs from the United States, but retaliatory tariffs from Canada are put in place. Costs for Wisconsin consumers would inevitably rise significantly with the cost of basic things like gasoline jumping. Much of the oil refined into gasoline in this region, it comes from Canada. The cost of lumber, vital to building new homes, would climb. New homes would cost thousands of dollars more to build, and the impacts throughout the housing market would be pushed higher and higher, and the rents would be pushed higher and higher because of it. Here in the city of Milwaukee, we're a hub for our state for de-icing road salt. In recent years, millions of tons of salt have come through our municipal port that's right on the shore of Lake Michigan. And you know what? A great majority of that salt comes from where? The province of Ontario, Canada. So we need that salt to keep our roads safe in the winter. And we're not all of a sudden going to find a local salt mine underneath the ground in Milwaukee. I don't want a hefty tariff loaded onto the cost of road salt. That's a new cost my residents would then have to bear. And as others have pointed out and will continue to point out, our economies are intertwined. I think that's a good thing. So any attempts to untangle those connections will have major consequences, both in the short term as well as in the long term. That'll harm my residents in Milwaukee, residents across the state of Wisconsin, and residents throughout the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway region. It is now my honor to pass it over to the mayor of the great city of Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mayor Johnson. I do appreciate your leadership, Mayor, and good morning to everyone. I really appreciate everyone being here this morning to have this important discussion. I stand here today, of course, with my colleagues to express my deep concerns about the ongoing trade disruptions between the United States and Canada. These disruptions are a great threat to the economic stability of Chicago, the Great Lakes region, and the livelihoods of thousands of hardworking people across our two great nations. Here in Illinois, we are already seeing disruptions in key industries, from manufacturing to agriculture, and these effects will certainly worsen if trade barriers remain in place. Chicago is one of the most trade-connected cities with Canada in the United States. And if these disruptions continue, we could see more than 11,000 jobs at risk in our region. We are seeing many businesses in Chicago sharing their concerns about the rising production costs due to trade uncertainties, making it harder to stay competitive and, of course, to retain workers. Our state's economy is at risk of losing nearly $2 billion in export revenue, with industries such as automotive parts, food products, and manufacturing being directly impacted. The Great Lakes, St. Lawrence region is one of the world's most deeply integrated economic zones. And our trade relationship with Canada is essential, not just for Chicago, but for businesses and workers across Illinois and throughout the Midwest. Nearly 60% of Canadian exports to the United States are intermediate goods such as steel, aluminum, and lumber, materials that are critical to many of our industries. And for U.S. exports to Canada, the share is 50%. In industries like automotive manufacturing, parts can cross the border up to 8 times before final assembly. And barriers to trade will increase cost at every step of that process, impacting both our consumers and our businesses. Trade disruptions can also put food prices at risk, as Illinois heavily relies on imports from Canada and Mexico. These trade disruptions could lead to price spikes at grocery stores, hitting working families the hardest. And Canada is Illinois' largest trade partner, with $83.6 billion in goods exchanged in 2023 alone. Major export hubs like Chicago and Detroit play a critical role in cross-border trade. Chicago alone exported $18 billion in goods to Canada in 2023. And any slowdown in trade threatens our city's economy, and of course, it threatens jobs. And that is why I'm standing here today with mayors from the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence cities. This entire region is so critical to the vitality of not just the Midwest, but to both of our respective nations. But it also underscores the vital importance of a strong and stable trade relationship between our nations. The US and Canada have a long history of economic cooperation, and it is essential that we continue to foster a robust and resilient economy that benefits businesses, workers, families on both sides of the border. We truly are stronger when we work together. Illinois and Chicago have long benefited from a strong and effective trade relationship with Canada, and we must ensure that our policies support job creation, innovation, as well as economic stability. We certainly should not do anything that would hinder any of those outcomes. I look forward to working with leaders across the region to continue to advocate for fair trade policies. We have to promote collaboration and ensure that we build a future of shared prosperity for our workers, businesses, and of course, our families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to bring on, we're going to switch the order up just slightly. Thank you for standing by with us. I would like to invite Mayor Evans from New York to speak next.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with my fellow mayors. I often say that a talk of a trade war between the U.S. and Canada reminds me of an African proverb that I use regularly that says, when the elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. And the people that will suffer with this trade war will be people with no incomes, low incomes, and middle-class incomes. They're the ones that will suffer the most with tariffs. And as the mayor of Rochester, I will tell you my greatest concern is for my constituents who live below or near the poverty line, and especially their children. These folks already are making impossible decisions with their incomes and expenses, rent or medicine, rent or healthy foods, rent or school clothes for their children. And you can just imagine how much, how a $1,300 a month cost of living increase that these tariffs are expected to generate will impact these already heartbreaking calculations. And trust me, the people imposing these tariffs, the elephants in that proverb, aren't making decisions like that. It is not just the people at the lowest end of the economic spectrum who will suffer. The economic disruption to these tariffs can set back the entire economy of Rochester and New York State. As an example, one of our largest employers, the University of Rochester Medical Center, is currently building a new emergency room. Those costs have already escalated. Imagine what tariffs would cause in terms of that disruption in the current escalation. That could be another 25% cost of what that of tariffs coming down. And all across New York State, these tariffs threaten a total of 55,000 jobs and about $17.4 billion in revenue. We don't need tariffs that raise the cost of low income and middle consumers and destabilize the economy for our employers. We need thoughtful and sustainable trade policies that protect the most vulnerable residents and support job creators. So it is my hope that cooler heads will prevail and that we can continue to have good collaboration between Canada and the United States and our other trading partners, and that we will put middle class and lower income Americans first as we look to shape policies and not have this level of disruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I am now going to invite the mayor of Oakville, who is available to speak. One moment. Is the mayor of Oakville available to speak?
Yes, he's coming online.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your patience. Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for coming on board. I know we shuffled you up in the schedule. I do apologize that. So thank you, Mayor.
No problem. So thank you and good morning. I first got my feet wet, literally, advocating for the auto industry in 2008, when there were Darwinian conversations about the future of the auto industry in Canada and the United States. I stood outside Oakville's Ford plant in a rainstorm for a live TV interview. Literally, it was a dark and stormy night. I warned that the financial crisis isn't and wasn't the automakers' fault, but they seem to be being nominated to pay the biggest price. And fortunately, mayors and municipalities came together to persuade governments that advanced manufacturing in Canada is the auto industry. And the auto industry is the heart and soul of Ontario's economy. I had a hunch that the challenges facing the auto industry weren't over. And so in 2013, I invited mayors from Ontario's auto manufacturing communities, that would include everybody with parts makers, anything to do with the auto industry, to come together and form the auto mayors. And we went on to unite industry leaders, unions, and officials to promote and protect Canada's most important high-tech sector. There's 45 auto mayors for what that's worth. Ontario has 444 mayors, to give you some context. A decade later, we remain committed to ensuring the survival and success of the auto industry. And that's why we're here today. We're urging our governments to prioritize effective solutions for tariffs that threaten jobs and investment. I was heartened by the news this morning that our Prime Minister is talking about being very careful about what measures are used so as to not spend a lot of energy hurting Canadians, but rather trying to make sure that the pain is sent where it needs to go. So we're very aware that Canada is the largest export market for the United States for passenger vehicles and light trucks. I think it's $23 billion last year, more than Germany, Mexico, and China combined. And beyond tariffs, we know that we need to address a fundamental issue, and that would be regulatory alignment. Misaligned policies and regulations create inefficiencies, they raise costs, and those put at risk the 3.5 million North Americans who power this industry, from raw materials to manufacturing, supply chains, and dealerships. This week, Siemens, with support from the Ontario government, announced a $150 million investment to establish a global AI manufacturing technologies R&D center for battery production in Canada. The new R&D center will be located at Siemens Canada's head office here in Oakville, as well as in Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. This will strengthen Ontario and North America's auto supply chain. We hope we build on this momentum rather than diving into uncertainty. As I always say, onward and upward. With that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Mayor Siscoe of St. Catharines.
We're going to have Mayor Chow. We'd love for you to finish your presentation, so I'm going to have you continue.
Thank you for that. Wasn't sure when I got off the screen, but I just want to give an example. Just yesterday, I was at a manufacturing plant, Yaya Foods, that employed over 1,000 workers. 80 to 90% of their products go to the United States. And if there's a tariff that get announced today at 4 o'clock, it's going to have tremendous impact and on his workers. It will raise the price of the product, their liquid food, and it will just be terrible on both sides of the border. I've also spoken to other members that manufacturing, and collectively they are saying it is going to hurt. Look, the Great Lakes and Lawrence region is one of the world's largest integrated economies, and my city is a strong part of that supply chain that deliver good jobs on both sides of the border. So we need to, most importantly, really continue our relationship here and all speak with one voice, because in the past, we have tackled difficult challenges, and if we continue to work together, we will emerge from this senseless trade war stronger, and united, we will do it again.
Thank you, Mayor. We're gonna pause one moment. We have a couple. We were gonna pause just for one moment before I pitch it back to Mayor Siscoe. I just want to make sure that we, so if you could hold on just for one moment.
Looks like we have Mayor Bonta of Portage has joined the call. Jackie, can you promote him?
Sure can. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me okay? Or I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're great.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're ready to present, Mayor.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't know which part of the thing I was coming in for.
You're worried. Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here. Sorry for any technical difficulties. My name is Austin Bonta. I'm the mayor of Portage, Indiana, off the coast of Lake Michigan, or Michigami, as I often prefer to call it. I'm here today because the trade disruptions between the United States and Canada pose a serious threat to Portage, my city, and to the whole state of Indiana, where more than 28,000 jobs are at risk and nearly $14 billion in export revenue is on the line. As one of the largest manufacturing economies in the country, Indiana's industries, from steel production to automotive parts to the medical instruments, face severe challenges that could undermine our local workforce and our economic stability. We urge federal leaders to prioritize sustainable trade policies that protect our jobs and maintain the integrity of our regional economy, which includes vital ties with Canada. And I'm happy to be here with my fellow mayors on both sides of the Great Lakes.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Oh, sure thing.
At this point, I'm going to conclude with Matt Siscoe, and then we're going to take Q&As.
Thank you very much for that. I do want to thank my colleagues from Chicago, Toronto, Milwaukee, Rochester, Oakville, and Portage for their thoughtful and diplomatic insights during this pivotal moment in the relationship between the United States and Canada. All of your voices are essential in championing our regional economy and the unique partnership that we have. Together, we stand Great Lakes St. Lawrence strong. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or turn those over to any of the other mayors on the call. So if there are any questions, we can take those at this time.
If any of the journalists have any questions, please just drop that question in the chat, and then we can direct it to the mayors who are on the call.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay, so we have a question from CBC. Can any of the mayors speak to how you went about quantifying your impacts on jobs? Would any of the mayors like to take that question regarding how you quantified the potential impact of tariffs on jobs in your community?
Well, I can speak from the St. Catharines experience. Here in St. Catharines, we worked closely with our Niagara region and our province of Ontario partners with respect to economic development relationships. We looked at the statistics to try and determine, where our exporters are. We worked closely with the Niagara Industrial Association here in St. Catharines, and that gave us the best number we could come up with here in St. Catharines locally. We have a population of about 140,000. 9,000 of the jobs here in St. Catharines are related directly to U.S. exports, and are the businesses we're most concerned with when it comes to tariffs impacting them. But the work was done across different levels of government with multiple staff members over the last couple of months.
Thank you.
I can speak from the perspective of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We used information that was compiled by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, which is the largest newspaper in circulation in the state of Wisconsin, that has shown reports about how these tariffs would impact us in the state of Wisconsin, the consequences it would have for jobs. There's also some notes from local businesses about how a 25% tariff would affect their bottom line. One in particular business in the city of Milwaukee, Blifford Lumber and Hardware, talked about the impacts of the tariff and the lumber that that company receives. I would imagine principally lumber that comes in from Canada, and how that would drive costs up for the company, which then would be passed on to the consumer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and we have a question in the chat we'd like to direct to Mayor Evans of Rochester. Senator Schumer said yesterday that the upstate New York market will be hit the hardest of any region in New York. What conversations might you be having with Canadian leaders to mitigate the uncertainty?
Well, I think this is the first step here. I mean, we're on this on this call here. We are part of this great organization, and we're relying on our partners to try to do what we can. I think that this is a all hands on deck conversation that needs to take place. This is something that a conversation that just not Rochester can have alone. It involves also our congressional delegation, our state partners. This is just not Rochester is hit, but it's also the entire state and all of our cities across New York State. So the conversations have to involve a wide multitude of people, because we have to show that this is not just going to impact one area. This is why you see on this call and at this press conference leaders from across the United States that have strong relationships with Canada, as well as our Canadian colleagues as well. So the conversation has to be, and the work has to be done collectively in order for us to amplify our voices, and that's what we're doing here today.
Thank you, Mayor Evans. Another question that we have in the chat for any of the mayors who would like to respond. Any indications that we're getting yet that President Trump may lift the tariff threats?
I can opine here. We've all seen over the course of his last presidency and over the course of President Trump's term presidency, it's almost impossible to predict what he will or will not do. So we don't know. I mean, we'll find out for certain when 4 o'clock Eastern strikes here in the United States to see what the president's ultimate decision will be as it relates to tariffs and their implementation.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Another question in the chat is, how soon do we expect the tariff impacts to be felt in local communities?
I could answer that, Mayor from Toronto, Olivia Chow. Just last night, I was speaking to a manufacturing company. He employed 800 people, and he's down now at 300 people. Why? Because he is compressing the shifts. Then they are working 2 or 3 days instead of 5 days. And it's because the order is stopped. It's not coming in anymore because of the uncertainty. And he knows that it's going to be a problem. So it's already starting to be felt.
I can add a little bit of context as well. I know in speaking with a couple of local businesses, we've seen some businesses in town that are now contemplating layoffs. The tariff talk over the last couple of months has put a pretty big chill on anybody taking any steps, any businesses taking steps to invest. You know, this was the last conversation was with a paving company that said that their commercial and residential orders have basically dried up to zero over the last 8 weeks. And they're not seeing any calls. They're not looking at any business for the coming spring season when they would get started. So I mean, I would argue that that a lot of the impacts have already begun. It hasn't quite rippled out into the mainstream consciousness yet, but it will, because I think we're going to see layoffs if businesses continue to hold on to capital and choose not to spend because of the uncertainty of what is coming.
Thank you, Mayor Siscoe. We have a couple of questions in the chat that are directed to specific mayors. This first one is to the mayor of Chicago. Mayor Johnson, given your concerns about President Trump's policies, what specific measures is your administration considering to mitigate any negative impacts these tariffs might have on Chicago residents?
Well, thank you for that question. Something that we've put in place, well before the second iteration of the Trump administration was established was a few things. One, we reinstituted the Department of the Environment. That was something that was shut down by 2 mayors ago to ensure that we are prioritizing environmental justice in a variety of ways. One of the other things that we did too was to ensure that we could build more affordable homes without the reliance upon the federal government. So we put forth a bond investment. It's the largest in the history of Chicago for housing and economic development to grow small businesses. We have a new initiative that we're hoping to pass in another month or so, green social housing, where a revolving loan allows for a non-for-profit to work with developers as well as local government to ensure that we cap rent, but we can build affordability in places where gentrification is a kind of a looming threat. So those are just a couple of examples. One of the other ones that we put forth an $830 million bond as well for infrastructure to repave our streets and our bridges, our lighting. These are the type of efforts that are going to continue to put people to work, but also address the critical issues that working people face every single day. This just starting yesterday, in fact, we have put forth amnesty measures around utilities and other fines and fees that tend to overwhelm working people. So our commitment to environmental justice, building more affordable homes, responding to our infrastructure and growing businesses, these are the type of measures that Chicago has led the way to ensure that there's no disruption locally around the things that people care about, particularly working families care about, and that's affordability, their utilities, the environment, and of course, some good paying jobs.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. We now have a question for Mayor Burton of Oakville. As you know, there's a Ford Assembly complex in Oakville, which has nearly 3,600 employees. How will these tariffs impact these jobs in Oakville, and what can be done to protect them?
Mayor Burton had to jump right back into a meeting, but we can follow up. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, this next question we have is for Mayor Chow of Toronto from Canada's National Observer. Mayor Chow, what impacts do you think the new tariffs would have on the FIFA World Cup in terms of cross-border travel and tourism? Are you concerned that these tariffs might discourage people from coming to the event in Toronto or going to the U.S.?
Well, the Canadian dollars are low, which means that Americans coming to visit Toronto, that's a pretty good deal. So I think, given next year, I think we will continue to have a lot of people coming to participate in the World Cup. Pardon me for having cold. So I'm not that concerned about that we would lose the cross-border travel when the World Cup is on.
Thank you so much, Mayor Chow. I see that we are just about at time and want to be respectful of all of our mayor's time. Actually wanted to acknowledge John Altenberg, the president and CEO of the Cities Initiative, to take us home and close out the press conference. John.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, mayors, for all of your participation this morning. Obviously, our organization feels the stress on our region as a result of the tariff war that is continuing to escalate for us in our region. It could have devastating consequences on jobs, on businesses, and on families. And we look forward to working with our coalition to continue to fight this and hope for calmer heads going forward. I thank you again for your participation. If any press has any further questions that they would like to email to us, I'm sure we can follow up with offices of our mayors. Again, thank you all, everyone, and have a good day.